Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aquarian Mind podcast. Today's podcast, episode number 63. I'm your host, Jamel Crothers. Book Insight Friday. That's what today is. And today we're delving into How I Wrote Kids with Guns, Part 2. Now, the start of Kids with Guns, Part 2, I wanted to bring the parents into the picture. Now, Matthew and Max's parents, well, they'll be major players in the series going forward, so it was only fitting that you heard their perspectives. Now, what's the truth and what are the hidden truths? That's the question. But you, the reader, learn that as the series progresses. Now, the parents are incorporated into the series, and they're in the series from part 2 through the end of it in part 5. Now, the main characters from part 1, they continue in this series as they are still dealing with the aftermath of this horrific shooting where they survived and they're trying to heal from it. Now, some characters are good and some suffer some fates that they weren't ready for. I just couldn't write feel-good stories for everyone, and some had to have life-changing ordeals that happened to them. And it's always about keeping things in perspective and looking at how life works and how life goes. I'm never about fairy tale endings in all of my books. By the end of the book, you'll hear from the shooters themselves, Matthew and Max. Now, with a lot of school shootings, either the kids shoot and kill themselves or they survive, but you never hear their side of the story. That changes in this series as they become, well, the main characters in the rest of the series. It's just, well, you're not going to hear from them in the beginning of any of these books the rest of the series. The reality is we're talking about gun control, violence in America, and the safeties of others, and I couldn't just make this a Matthew and Max story only. So it's why I never start any of my books in the series with them as the focal points. They're the antagonists. They're the people that, well, you love to hate. And this is definitely not an easy subject to talk about. But, hey, look, it has to be discussed, okay? I mean, look, you got Columbine, Santa Fe, Parkland, and, well, the list goes on and on and on. And this is about children's lives and the safety of people, not just about having the right to own guns. Second Amendment does give us the right to own guns, but at what price? How are kids getting access to guns so easily? Like it's walking into a candy store and picking what you like and buying it. There are other things that go into this gun control ordeal, especially the agendas that are being pushed and the media utilizing their coverage to divide us as a nation. But there's way more to this, and it comes from the power that be. And what I will say with that is, well, do your own research. But what I will say is that, when you read Kids with Guns Part 1, you learn of Lena and Charles and Jerry and, students and, the teacher, Jerry, the teacher, and Lena and Charles, the students. Like, they continue throughout the series. And you learn about them and their fates and how they heal and how they deal and, all the things that go on in their minds. And other characters also. And then there are some new characters that come into the series in Kids with Guns Part 2. Peter, the former friend of Matthew and Max, and, Matthew's ex-girlfriend. I bring some new people into the picture. And then you'll meet the prosecutor and the defense attorney and all that stuff. That comes along with it. Brian and Anthony, you'll meet them. And so there's just a lot of things that happen in Kids with Guns Part 2. I don't want to sit here and tell you the whole story and then it defeats the purpose of you going to get the book, which is on Book Patch. You can get the Book Patch. You can get the ebook and the paperbacks are there, and then you also can get it in Barnes and Nobles, Kobo, Scribd, all those other iTunes, all those other bookstores where you can get the ebook copies. My books are no longer on Amazon, so please do not go looking for them there. And I will address that down the road on why I made that decision. There is a blog about it. I will address it in a podcast down the road, and I'll probably elaborate way more than I will on a blog. But the blog to this podcast right now, you can go and look at it, and you can see the notes of how I put Kids with Guns Part 2 together. And it's something that I felt the need that, I want to share as much as possible with how I go about writing these books in these series. And down the road, I will delve into character development and why I, put in certain characters into books and into the series and how it impacts, my writing and things of that nature. But I don't want to go full force on that. But that's something that will be happening in the near future. So what I will say is that Kids with Guns Part 2, that's going to be more of a focus of how the community reels in and comes together and tries to make things better for themselves, and they try to recover from all that's going on, and with all the news media and coverage that goes on after a school shooting and all that stuff. So there's a lot of layers to Part 2, and as the series goes on, there will be more and more layers to uncover and unfold. And I will continually tell you that there are certain characters that you really have to pay attention to in this series. There are 3 characters in this full series that you really, really, really have to pay attention to and what they say and how I write it. I can't tell you these characters' names. You just have to really pay attention. That's what I'll say. And there's one person who has read the whole series, and I will commend her for paying attention to details on certain things. And everything has its purpose and reason. And that's why I do these podcasts, to really give you the inside scoop on what is going on at the top of my head in my mind on how I'm writing these characters and writing these books, and getting you guys to understand that there are so many stories that don't get told when these school shootings happen. You only get probably 10% of the story. You don't really get the full on storylines of a myriad of people who have a story to tell, but the TV TV cameras are not going to turn to them to get them to talk. Trust me. So, with that said, that's my podcast for today. I thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys have a very good weekend, a productive one. Big at everyone, and go accomplish your goals.